Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hello, listeners. This is your host, Andy Curry. Welcome to the program today. I am fired up because I have on the line with me Kevin Jones, who has been speaking for 5 years professionally. And the content he speaks on is about company cultures and employee engagement. This is going to be an interesting chat, so stay tuned. He speaks in the U.S., and he's done some international speaking. He's based out of Oregon. He has written an ebook that is available on Amazon called 15 Ways to Fail at Social Business. Kevin, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
We are happy to have you with us, Kevin. Kevin, tell us about your speaking business. Who are you talking to? What are you teaching them, and how are you helping them?
Great. I am speaking with, I talk to a lot of HR groups and also just companies at company events as well. And one of the, I guess kind of to back this up a bit, when speaking to these groups, I've done a lot of and do a lot of consulting as well, and find that there are what I call corporate zombies, and they walk the halls of businesses, and they look like they're barely there. They are they're almost emotionless, and it's actually quite sad. They go in and they do their job, but that's about it. In fact, some of the studies we find from a lot of the big consulting firms, it's about 70% of employees that are either disengaged from their job or actively disengaged, which is trying to subvert the company itself. So 70% of the U.S. workforce, and actually in other countries, it's higher than that. So if we take 70% of typically any company, we have, again, what I call corporate zombies that are just there for the paycheck. They really don't care if they do really well, although, some do, some don't. But and so when I go and speak with companies and with a lot of HR and actually IT groups as well, what we talk about is the human side, and that we are losing a lot of productivity in a way from having 70% of our workforce just be there taking orders and doing, quote, what they should. I've heard some organizations say actively to their employees, just sit down and color. That's all we want you to do. And that's almost sad.
Right.
All we want is you, a machine, in your seat, just doing your job. Don't think about it, just do it. And we are shooting ourselves in the foot by doing that. And so through my consulting, I found people try to create employee engagement initiatives. They try to get their employees engaged, and they do this through a whole bunch of different ways. And I found that usually they don't work, and sometimes they make it even worse. I've seen some initiatives that have made, those relationships with employees worse. And so what I do is I go around and say, okay, this is what people, what employees really want. And this is what managers or management is giving them. And they're very different. And how do we fix that? Because really, when you look at it, it's a weird paradox most people don't talk about. Managers try to hire employees to get the most out of them for the least amount of money. Employees are just the opposite. They try to get the most amount of money for the least amount of work. And so no wonder there's a huge there's a huge dichotomy there, a battle almost, and it doesn't end when they're hired. It just begins. And so we talk about how do we get everyone on the same page and really create workplaces that are engaging the employees.
Interesting. Now, You said that you go in and you're hired for consulting, coaching, and kind of thing. So, what's your background? How is it that you came about being able to do this?
So I started doing this by training. I used to love, well, actually I still do. I still love creating trainings and helping people understand things that they didn't before and seeing that aha moment in them. So I started in training, creating trainings, and then running training departments. And then I realized that, you know what? Training is just a subset of learning. So let's talk about learning overall. And then after a while, I went, wait a minute, that's just a subset of performance improvement overall. And then, that just kept snowballing into creating a culture which is healthy, basically. And so just led from one thing to the next to where I started consulting and coaching on creating healthy cultures. And it really actually involved with creating collaborative environments, using collaborative software, internal collaborative software. A lot of people think of products like Yammer and Jai, and that's true, but that's just the beginning. It goes so much more beyond those products, and you can't have those products to help you if you don't have the culture that supports them. And so it's been a great kind of adventure going into the next step and realizing, hey, there's something bigger than this, and there's something bigger than this. And so where I'm at right now, and it is helping those cultures become more healthy.
You had said earlier that, and that's a great point, where the employees, or actually the employers, hire from as little as they can and get as much out as they can. And employees, of course, the opposite. How do you bring those two together? How are you, first of all, when you tell employers that, do they get that, and do they want to really do something about it? Have you found, or what's going on there?
No, that's a really good point, because I think intuitively everyone does want to do something about it, but when it comes down to it, it's difficult because you have to change the way you work. And in fact, there have been some companies that I've worked with that I said, okay, you want to do this? Yes, we want to make the change. Let's go forward. And we start making the change, and they back out because they realize it is disruptive to their company to do things differently than what they have before. And some companies aren't ready to make that switch.
Are they afraid of the change?
They like what they've been. Yes, they are, because a lot of the change is unknown. So when we're working with the companies and we say, all right, we talk about trust. So I'll give a quick example. When I went to work with one company that wanted to change their culture, the president basically came and said, I can't get my people to take initiative. I want them to take more initiative than they're doing. They're just being yes men. I want them to do more. And so I came and talked with their executive team. And in the first meeting, we talked about different ideas. And I mentioned at one point that some companies trust their employees so much that they don't give them vacation or sick leave at all. They just say, you're adults. If you need it, take it. We trust you. We would ask that you take maybe 3 weeks or so, set a time, but don't tell us if you need to, just take it.
No kidding.
And that got their, yeah, it is very unusual. But if you think about just a change like that, and I'll come back to the story in a sec, but if you think about just a change like that, if you have management who trusts their employees that much, what signal does that send to their employees that, hey, you know what? They trust me to do some good work, and I'm going to be here. And I found that organizations who actually do that, the employees don't actually take their full time. They don't abuse it. There may be one or two outliers who do, and they're taken care of, and it's easy to spot. And they're obviously doing other things as well and abusing that. But it just sends that signal that, hey, I trust you. Go be awesome. You know the company mission. You're on board. Let's go do it. And so it actually works really, really well. So back to the story, the company thought, hey, we've got some guys out in the warehouse, and they punch the clock so that we can make sure that they're there for 40 hours a week. And the president said, what if we just got rid of that clock? Let's get rid of it. Hey, all the executives agreed, hey, let's do that. Let's try that out. So they went to their warehouse employees and said, we're getting rid of the clock. You don't need to clock in anymore. We trust you. If you come in at 7, work 8 hours during the day and go home, that's great. Do it. Now, overall, that sounds great. And I think it's a great way to show that you trust your employees and to help them. But what happened in this circumstance was that the employees still continued to check in. They still clocked in every single day. All of them did. And when we went to find out why, it's because they didn't trust management wouldn't come back on them someday. And that was a huge eye-opener for the company to say, oh my goodness, we're trusting them, but they really, really do not trust management at all. We have some serious work to get done.
How'd they rectify
that? And so, I don't know to say this, because what happened is we started getting into it and we started saying, all right, here are some changes you need to make. And it started to snowball into more and more changes, and they saw this, and they kind of put a kibosh on the whole thing and said, we can't do this. We can't really disrupt. And that particular client had to stop and say, we just can't do this. And it was unfortunate because there was so much potential there, but they had to end that.
Well, it sounds like when companies recognize there's something that needs to be done, they don't understand the depth of what needs to be done.
Correct. Yeah, and you're very, very correct. So I worked with. So, for example, another example I'll give is I work with NASA. They're one of my clients, and when I first started helping them, and it was on the collaborative software side, trying to help them, put in a collaborative software and get people to adopt it and to use it. Although I knew what was going on, they had no clue the amount of changes that would need to take place. And so I went in and kind of tried to inform them of, okay, this is going to need to happen. And their attitude at first, understandably, as most people's are, is to say, okay, yeah, we'll get there. I thought, okay, this is going to be a bigger deal than you think. This is going to be harder than you think, but that's, let's go forward with this. And we did, and we put it in place, and people didn't use it. And they're like, oh my goodness, what do we do? And I said, all right, now comes the part B of what I was talking about before. All right, let's do that. And so we started to work on their culture overall. And at that point, they were kind of stuck. They had this software that they really wanted people to use, and they couldn't just back out of it, which was good. And so they were in it for the long haul. And bit by bit, it has been getting so much better. I mean, the improvements that we've seen, where people are saving. I mean, if you look at it from a cost avoidance and a productivity booster, hundreds of thousands into the millions of dollars worth of productivity saved each year. It's people are amazed, and again, they have to change the way they work, and that's scary. But once they do it, their eyes open, they go, "Oh my goodness, I'm doing this for everything," and it just spreads from there. And so, if people can make that leap, it's huge. But it's just getting people to make that leap.
I grew up in retail. My dad had a hardware / lumberyard in a small town of about 8,500 people. And Where I'm coming from when I hear you talk, because I managed that for a lot of years, a long time ago, and a lot of the stuff you're saying I can see how it'd be useful. Some of it would make my dad turn over in his grave. Like, for instance, you don't have to clock in anymore, or take your vacations when you want.
Right.
So this is probably, would this be more applied to bigger corporations, or does that matter? How does that work?
Actually, I've seen smaller companies embrace this faster than larger companies.
Have you?
I honestly think it's for all. Now, when you talk about retail, I've talked with, for example, investment brokers who have the people on the phone all the time. They don't want them to deviate. They don't want them to. They have a script. They're supposed to call. They're supposed to make 60 calls a day. Just go and do it, and they don't want anything different. Or people on the floor who are in a warehouse who are supposed to do the same thing day after day after day after day. But there are companies who use these kind of strategies that say, okay, we are going to change it. And even in retail, we're going to change the way we work here and try some of these strategies. And it's tough because we have been taught, whether it's through, we've been brought up in the workforce and this is how you do work, or through MBAs, this is how you should manage a business. We manage it differently. It's scary, but the payback is huge. And I've seen all those types of companies, whether it's large or small, whether it's in retail or manufacturing or knowledge of some type, make these changes, and they're amazed at the benefit that they get. It's even to the point, and I've seen this, and this goes to the extreme, and I don't advocate that companies go straight to this extreme, but I have seen some where they go to a spot where they do not have any managers anymore. And multi-billion-dollar companies don't have any managers.
That's hard to imagine.
It actually works better.
Yeah.
It is very, very hard to imagine, but it does work even better. And their profits grow, and they are continually growing while the economy goes down, and they're going up. And you think, oh my goodness, how are they doing that? And it's because of the way that they're organized. And so it's something that's really, really exciting. But you got to take companies bit by bit through this because they don't want to eat the elephant all in one chunk.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, Kevin, how can people get a hold of you should they want to learn more or hear you speak?
My website is Vin Jones, as in Kevin, vinjones.com, VINJONES. And there's information there about speaking and the different topics and workshops that I do, and consulting overall.
Okay, well, Kevin, thank you for joining us today. That was fascinating information. With the background that I have, that was really piquing my interest, and that was really good to hear. Thank you so much.
Thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.